In the Dragon Ball franchise, audiences have been introduced to a number of villains who were incredibly powerful and equally fearsome. Some of these villains were given time to shine, but some of them never really lived up to their full potential. So which Dragon Ball villain has the most potential for strength and for villainy? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss that. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Okay guys, so like I said in the intro, we're going to be discussing who the villain with the most potential is in Dragon Ball, in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. So joining me today in this video is someone you've seen on my videos in the past, and his name is Geekdom101. See, I subverted your expectations. Very Ryan Johnson of me.
You are. You should be making Star Wars movies, bad ones at that. So yeah, well, we've been covering this kind of stuff on Wasted Potential here on your channel for a while. So this is kind of like a special edition of Wasted Potential.
It's going to be tied into the Wasted Potential series because some of these villains we're going to be talking about are villains that could have really ended up being much bigger parts of the series, but ultimately kind of fell to the wayside, as many villains in Dragon Ball tended to do. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about their potential in terms of strength, but we're also going to be discussing their potential in terms of what they could do as villains and just how far their characters can be taken.
I'm gonna hit you with some of my picks. We've talked about this before. Dabura, I feel like, was wasted potential like crazy because having this kind of Jafar looking guy who can breathe fire, spit and turn you into stone, have a sword, he has that cool cape, like the beard. There's so many cool aspects of that character, and he was pretty much just set up to be fodder for Majin Buu. Yeah, I've always felt like he was very underrated. Now, when it comes to power, obviously the guy wound up being, again, another fodder character, but King Cold, who you've done a lot of videos on that are very successful on your channel, there's been all kinds of crazy theories, like Dragon Ball Multiverse has talked about how if King Cold had multiple transformations beyond, like, you know, the fourth form, how strong he would be. And there's like crazy theories that King Cold is like a universe buster, and there's just no evidence on that. Dude, Trunks annihilated him without even breaking a sweat. So to me, those are the two that really stand out. Also, I feel like, and I've said this before, I think in the video either with you or Josh, and I forget, it's been so many years, but Janemba, you know, my favorite movie villain, I've always felt if they were to make him like a main villain, like in an arc, I mean, I would love that, but they would have to change the story because the Janemba story makes more sense for a film unless they actually made it like an arc. It wouldn't be as long as the Buu arc, but they would have to change a lot of things because, you know, with the unbalance of the other world, it could be done for an arc, but I don't think it would be like a 90 episode arc, more like a 30 episode arc. I'm just saying those are the ones that pop in my head immediately based on the topic. Those are the first three that pop in my head right away.
Yeah, I definitely agree with them in terms of villain potential. Like, you know, we could have really gotten an entire arc just to have Dabura in the demon world, because Dabura was the king of the demons. He was somebody who ruled over like a flip side dimension, basically, as Supreme Kai described it. So, you know, a universe of darkness almost, you know, something with a bunch of evil beings who were all led by this one character.
Well, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about the way that he's been portrayed in Heroes? You've got Toa, you've got all these new demonic people like Demigra, Mechakabura. You know, how do you feel about them kind of making the demon realm a main plot? Didn't you do a video about this?
I did a similar video a little while back on the channel. However, I've never really fleshed out all of my feelings on the demon world and about how they could really use it. And I definitely agree that, you know, in terms of how they've been using him in the demon world in Heroes, that's definitely a lot more interesting than what we've got in the main storyline, at least, because, you know, aside from the Dragon Ball filler, we never really get to see them go to the demon world. We never really get to see, like, just how big of a threat it could be, and I feel like the fact that they're doing that in spin-offs is really interesting, but would it really be so far-fetched for Dabura to, say, be revived, or for, you know, somebody to pick up his mantle and maybe wage war on the living world or something? That could really lead to a great arc.
I personally love what Heroes did with the Demon Realm lore, because, like, I love this idea that, like, Mechakabura is like Satan in the Bible.
Yeah.
He wanted to be the Supreme Kai of time, and I've got a video coming out on my channel about this very soon. I just started working on it yesterday, but I love how he wants to be the Supreme Kai of time, couldn't do it, and thus rebelled. And I love the idea of, like, Demigra being there from the beginning. He kind of was the one that originally made the Kais create the Demon Realm to trap the demons in there. Like, you know, they're taking taking ideas from like, you know, Western religions and things like that. I love that a lot. In some ways, the lore is so much more interesting than what we got in Dragon Ball Super, you know, like we talked about. So I think that stands out. But I think Heroes is like the main thing when it comes to bringing back old characters. We've got Timebreaker Bardock and Timebreaker King Vegeta, who, I mean, you've got King Vegeta, who's a flashback only character who's been pretty much, you know, jabroni, and now he's challenging Beerus to Mortal Kombat. Like, you know, I think that's kind of cool. So I feel like the wasted potential that you and I see, Heroes sometimes, not all the time, sometimes takes advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, as we mentioned already, King Cold, you know, like Frieza's father, someone who the anime implies is more powerful. And it's kind of implied that he was the one who set up a large portion of Frieza's empire. So maybe even like flashing back to the past, like how he met Beerus, you know, how he found out about Majin Buu, you know, like we've both discussed in our own individual videos. That would have been really great. And Janemba, I did a video discussing how he could have had his own arc, and how, you know, you could argue that he might have been a better main villain than even Majin Buu, but really depends on his execution. However, I feel like a lot of this comes down to something I feel like is almost symptomatic of Dragon Ball, which is a lot of the times the secondary antagonist ends up being even more interesting than the main one. Like, we even saw this in Dragon Ball Super, most notably, I feel like, with the Tournament of Power, where, in my opinion, I feel like if they had taken Toppo, who was like a big main antagonist at the time almost, you know, he was a secondary antagonist, and they had made him the main antagonist, you know, his whole story of how he was going to become a god of destruction, how he gave up his morals and his justice so that he could gain that ultimate power so that he could defend his universe. I feel like that was kind of squandered, and if he had been given his own arc, I feel like that might have even been more interesting than what we got with Jiren, for example. What do you think about that?
I don't know if I entirely agree with you on that, because I've always felt that Toppo was very much like Ribrianne in that they kind of wound up becoming these one-dimensional catchphrase characters. You know, all Ribrianne talked about was love, 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 love. All Toppo talked about was justice, justice, justice. And to me, he's way less interesting than Jiren. But one thing I will say, though, I don't think Jiren is even that interesting. I mean, I know that might be sacrilege, but outside of him being a big tough guy who had his parents die, which we've seen a lot in fiction, he's pretty much just a generic dude. Yeah, and it's like, I don't entirely disagree with you, but I don't think either one is that interesting. I really don't. I actually feel like the idea that Dispo looks like Beerus and Champa, I thought that is more interesting, you know, because I'm a big fan of lore, with them exploring if Beerus and Champa have a home planet, if they are a race of purple cats, even though Dispo's more of like a bunny. Still, like, I do wonder if we'll ever, and we probably won't, if we'll ever get like a real exploration of like who they are, because I feel like we know Beerus, but we don't really know Champa that well, and I love Champa, and I want to get to know, I mean, there's still like 4 universes that did not fight in the Tournament of Power that still could be a discussion point in the future if they decide to go there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could do.
And what do you think about Champa, like, as his own main antagonist? Because he was a sort of main antagonist in the Tournament of Destroyers, as they call it in the English dub, but he wasn't really somebody who was fighting, you know? One of the big things that many fans thought about when Dragon Ball Super was coming and they introduced Champa was, oh, so Vegeta or somebody's gonna go god against him, you know, he's gonna be the next person that they're gonna fight, and we never really see Champa fight at all.
No, we see it more in the manga than the anime with Torotaro. He drew a lot of extra stuff with Champa.
That was something I thought would have been really interesting if they had given him an arc where he, like, comes in kind of like Beerus did. Maybe Vegeta was the one to fight him this time.
They really dropped the ball, dude, in a way, because I wanted to see, I think we talked about it years ago, I wanted to see Beerus and Champa team up. I wanted to see a villain come along and, like, make them, like, push them to the limits where they have to work together, maybe even fuse. We never got to see Whis ever fight seriously. There's a lot of things that we have not seen yet that we may never see. I mean, at this point, are we ever going to really see the Grand Priest fight? We know how strong he is, top 5 or whatever. Are we ever going to see it? And if so, who can challenge him? I mean, they can come up with a new character anytime they want.
Come on, Danny. We all know it's going to be Broly.
Now, if you're talking about characters that, like Broly, Toriyama did not invent but could take and make his own, that I would like to see come back, I mean, Cooler's one that I think everyone loves. Obviously, Janemba, Baby. And I've talked about this on streams before. I would love it, because the idea of a surviving Sufurian or Tuffle that wants revenge on the Saiyans, it's been done twice. It was done in the OVA, the Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans and Super Saiyans, and it was done in GT, but Toriyama's never done it. I mean, we'll see how Broly is, but I feel like I would love an actual Toriyama-penned storyline where we have a Sufurian coming back.
I've always really liked the concept of Baby, and rewatching Dragon Ball GT, which I did somewhat recently, he's definitely the best part of the series for me. You know, I like Omega Shenron, but I feel like his arc leading up to his existence isn't really as good as the overall Baby arc. But when it comes to Baby, he's just such a great concept. He's almost like, you know, a weapon that was designed for revenge against the Saiyans, but he has his own personality and he has real motivations that we can totally understand and, you know, even sympathize with a little bit, because it's not only just like the Tuffle technology actually that they put into him.
The machine mutants.
Yeah, they even put the DNA of the king of the Tuffles himself into Baby. So like, it's almost like a reverse of Vegeta, where he's like fighting for his people and his pride and, you know, trying to turn everything back into what the Tuffles were trying to have at the time, even though he takes it to a really evil extent later on by trying to turn everyone into Tuffles. But I feel like that'd be really interesting if you're going to continue along this reboot kind of capacity, and even the concept of the Shadow Dragons.
Yeah, and I love that because it was a consequence that they talked about even in Dragon Ball Z when the old Kai said, "Are you sure we should be using these wishes like this?" when they were fighting Kid Buu. Somebody who wrote GT was like, let's use that line and create this whole fucking storyline where the Dragon Balls have so much minus energy that it turn on the world. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's a great concept. It wasn't really as good in execution, but if they were to redo it and they were to flesh it out more, it could be an amazing arc, you know, like, especially if it's not rushed like GT was. Like, if they actually take their time with it, it'd be so awesome. You know, it really waits to be seen if they're gonna try and reboot stuff from GT or if they're just gonna go in a completely different direction.
No, I mean, I have no idea where they're going, because, I mean, Broly's popular. I don't think Baby's as popular as Broly, but I think the idea behind Baby could work. It doesn't have to be Baby. It could just be any surviving Sufurian. I think there's potential there, or even a race that was wiped out by the Saiyans. That it doesn't have to be Sufurian, it could be anybody, and by Frieza that's looking for revenge now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could do, but I don't know if that's really wasted potential. I guess it's more so potential for the future, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so basically we talked mostly about potential as a villain, you know, what they could achieve in the future. Who do you think, in terms of villains that we've been introduced to so far, like from a strict strength point of view, would be able to become the most powerful? Because of course we saw somebody like Frieza who trained for 4 months and was able to become Super Saiyan Blue level, you know? So what about some of these other villains? Like, who do you think has the most potential for strength that could actually become a threat for Goku if they were to be brought back?
I mean, Broly, but we already got that one. This is kind of weird, but I mean, okay, Kid Buu got brought back as Oob, so let's move that out of the way. We already talked about Baby. Again, Heroes already did all this stuff, bro. Like, it's hard to really say because Heroes did a lot of it. I love the idea that Heroes had of the Red Ribbon Army becoming the Red Pants Army and like recreating old tech, like having Android 19,000. Like, it's so wacky, but I feel like it fits with Dragon Ball. I love that. I love that a lot, and I don't know about a threat. See, the thing is, when you say a threat for Goku, bro, we're talking about a guy who is now above God level when he's Ultra Instinct, so I feel like, again, how are you gonna find a villain that's gonna be above his level?
Yeah.
What they should do is maybe take the idea that Toriyama had for the Makaio-shin and maybe have a Makaio-shin come up and possibly not reincarnate Majin Buu, but create a new version of Majin Buu, sort of like what Bibbidi was trying to do, and like conjure up that evil again and maybe have something like that happen. You know, they could do something like that. As far as old villains, though, I don't know anybody to compete with Goku right now. It would have to be Broly, but you could always write. I mean, maybe Golden Cooler. I mean, I feel like all the ideas we have, Heroes already is doing, bro. Like, they bring everybody back.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Cell, Buu, like we already said, has already kind of come back as Oob, but they can even bring him back a different way. You know, it might have to be somebody in Super, so like Hit, for example, you know?
I was gonna say Hit, but I didn't think he was gonna be a villain, though.
I mean, Hit is kind of a neutral antagonist, but given the right writing or given somebody who hires him again, kind of like they did in the filler, like he could become like a real threat for an arc. You know, in terms of power that could actually challenge Goku, it would either have to be somebody like Cell or it would have to be somebody like Hit or Jiren, you know?
You're right, I didn't even think about Cell, because we did that video, you and I. Is Golden Cell possible? We did do that video, and yes, I think the concept of Golden Cell is completely ridiculous because we've already got Golden Frieza and Golden Cooler. I don't want Golden King Cold, even though I'm sure it would make you a lot of money. In fact, you should do that video, Golden King Cold, bro. There's another million view video for you.
Put a period at the end.
No, do it. I'm actually not even kidding right now. I'm telling you right here on this video, don't edit this out. Do Golden King Cold, period. Make it 4 minutes long and you're good. You'll get tons of views. But no, what I was going to say was Cell. I didn't even think of Cell. Yeah, Cell is a great example, honestly. I don't know why my brain was not working there. We talked about it already.
Yeah, we have. So this is the time when it comes for you guys to tell us your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't forget to check out Geekdom101 in the end screen and description. And if you like this video, then make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Wow, I want to be the strongest villain. Wow.
We all know that I'm the most powerful villain of all.